Expert Dr. Greg Forbes. And Dr. Greg, where's some of the worst of the weather now, and where's it expected to be this evening?
It's definitely right in Orlando and Kissimmee right now. We've just had reports 87-mile-per-hour gusts at the Orlando International Airport, 75-mile-per-hour gust at Kissimmee. You see this yellow band, that's the leading portion of the eye wall of Charlie, and that's where the damaging winds are. There could be some isolated tornadoes in there as well, and that's going to be pushing up across Orlando, Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Winter Springs area over the next half hour or so. The center will get to Daytona Beach about 11 Orlando the next 45 minutes. One of the outer rain bands coming towards the Jacksonville area could clip the coastal areas. About 9:30, 10 o'clock. There could be some tornadoes in that. That band has had tornadoes earlier today. Let's switch sources. We'll see the greatest threat is going to continue off from the Orlando area up toward Daytona Beach, up toward the areas in between Daytona Beach and Jacksonville. Still along that core, we could have 6 inches of rain. And then as we go into tomorrow, as the center of Charlie gets close to the coastal areas of the Carolinas, we could get 4 to 6 inches of rain there. And some of those coastal areas, there's a chance of some tornadoes in that area tomorrow. By Sunday, as Charlie continues off farther to the north and east, more of that heavy rain could get up into the New York City area. That mid-Atlantic has had a tremendous amount of rain over the past few days. Some of the rivers are at or above flood stage already, so flooding is a big problem.
Dr. Greg Forbes, thank you very much for that report. Let's go ahead and recap the expected path of this storm. In the next couple of days, it should continue off into northern Florida, then emerge somewhat out over the open water in the Atlantic to the east of Georgia and South Carolina, and then drop back in to the coast right around North and South Carolina. We think around the middle of the day tomorrow. It's not going to be nearly as strong as it once was, but it certainly could be a hurricane, and it could continue to cause very heavy rain, as Dr. Greg just mentioned, as well as some storm surge and some very strong wind. For that reason, we have hurricane warnings now in effect from Cape Lookout, North Carolina, right down to Cocoa Beach. And just a quick look at what's going on with the storm right now. The wind's down to 115 miles an hour officially as of the 8 p.m. advisory, moving towards the north-northeast at about 25 miles an hour.
And you know, Jeff made a good point earlier when he said that, you know, his heart goes out to some of the people dealing with this storm when those winds are howling and you're not used to this kind of weather. It can be really frightening. So these storms don't just fall apart when they hit land. Still dealing with a formidable storm. We'll keep you updated.
You're looking at video of the storm at its peak in Port Charlotte, Florida, as it made landfall at about 4 p.m. this afternoon. We had reports of winds gusting unofficially to 127 miles an hour in Punta Gorda, just off towards the east. Many reports of trees and power lines down, as well as damage to homes, and here is some of that damage.
We've had a roof collapse at a fire station number 12 in Charlotte County. Also, another roof collapse on Deep Creek Nursing Home. Planes are mangled at the Charlotte County Airport, and roof damage at the Punta Gorda EMC. So a rough situation here, and there's no doubt we'll have many more reports of damage as the night goes on.
And for more expert analysis on Hurricane Charlie, let's bring in our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons. And Dr. Steve, a very scary night in Orlando tonight.
It sure is. The eye wall of the hurricane is moving right through. It moved right through the Orlando airport and is on the south side of Interstate 4, moving northeast at a fairly good clip. Very strong winds gusting over 80 miles per hour. We expect some trees down. Power outages should be significant over the next 24 hours up along the track here. Now back here we've already had significant power outages, as you've already heard, more than 1 million people without power down here. The good news is all the weather down here is improving. The power's out. How long it'll be out, we don't know. We'll let you know as soon as we do know whether that's going to happen. Now, where's it going? Now, when we say Saturday morning here, moving off the coast, we mean about 1 or 2 a.m. We don't mean when you get up in the morning. It's hauling to the north pretty fast here, and it looks like it's going to come offshore. Now, when it comes offshore, it's not going to have time to generate much wave action along the Georgia or southern South Carolina coast. All the strong winds and wave action will be up on the North Carolina coastline and the central and northern portions of the South Carolina coastline. And hurricane warnings are up along here. Now let's look at the track of the circulation here. This big upper level trough is the one that's pulled it to the north. It's going to be moving very quickly. So the good news is it'll be a very fast event in the Carolinas as the rain spreads all the way up the northeast, as Dr. Forbes has just told you a few minutes ago. Now, we do have hurricane warnings up, and they extend from Cape Lookout all the way down to Cocoa Beach. I would imagine these hurricane warnings on the west coast of Florida should be dropped later this evening, at least by 11 o'clock, but maybe before that. We'll have to wait and see. Now, we have another tropical system out there, new tropical depression. It's heading toward the islands. This is number 5, and it's forecast to become a storm before it gets to the Antilles, which are right over here. We may see some watches posted this evening by 11 o'clock. We'll keep you updated on that, but it's moving to the west-northwest at about 15 miles per hour, and upper-level conditions look favorable for possible development of this system. Another tropical depression even farther out off the African coast. We'll continue to monitor that one for you, but right now it's a long way from land, and we don't expect any impacts right now other than from the high seas. Let's get back to the studio.
Dr. Steve Lyons, thank you very much, and stay with us for more expert analysis and live reports as Hurricane Charlie continues on its path to the north.
And of course, Charlie has made landfall, and it's still edging through Florida and eventually toward the Carolinas. We've had reports of roof damage at a Cape Coral hospital and a number of other areas. You can see pictures here from Fort Myers, where we have had a number of reports of power outages. Small planes toppled here in hundreds of thousands without power, and again, roof damage as well. You're looking at the strong winds and heavy rain pushed in just before Hurricane Charlie made landfall tonight. These are pictures from Fort Myers, Florida, shot by one of our crews just before they had to take shelter. The strongest winds were in excess of 120 miles per hour.
You let me know.
And welcome back to our extended coverage on the impact of Hurricane Charlie, and we are starting to get reports now that are absolutely amazing. 160 homes apparently destroyed down in Lee County, Florida. A roof torn off of a shelter with 1,200 people inside, and a 7-foot storm surge in Fort Myers.
That's right. Let's take a look at the very latest with Charlie. It's now still packing winds of 115 miles per hour, moving to the north-northeast to 25 miles per hour, 950 millibars the pressure. We'll have much more coming up on Evening Edition. You'll want to stay with us.
Stay tuned. Hurricane coverage will continue on the Weather Channel. Right now, here's your local on the 8s. Hurricane coverage continues on the Weather Channel.
And you're looking at what happened when Hurricane Charlie came onshore here in Port Charlotte, Florida. This news crew was bombarded.
You can see, again, powerful winds and people being blown all over the place as Hurricane Charlie and its wind gust of over 120 miles per hour came on shore around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Well, we continue our storm alert coverage of Hurricane Charlie. I'm Paul Goodlow.
And I'm Jennifer Lopez. And now Hurricane Charlie is crossing over into central Florida, very close to Orlando. Within the past hour, they've had wind gusts up to 87 miles an hour.
We have live team coverage tonight. Storm tracker Jim Cantori is feeling the brunt in Fort Myers, but you can see right now Hurricane Charlie downgraded a little bit down to Category 2 storm, 115 miles per hour. And again, we still have our team coverage. Storm tracker Jim Cantori is in Fort Myers, Florida tonight. Jeff Morrow is in North Reddington Beach. Stephanie Abrams is in Daytona Beach. And Mike Seidel will feel Charlie's impact tomorrow in Folly Beach, South Carolina.
Let's go first to our storm tracker, Jim Cantori. Again, he's in Fort Myers, Florida, where he has been riding out Hurricane Charlie.
And Jim, you were kind of on the wrong side of that storm, the right side, which is the more powerful side of the storm. What did you feel this afternoon as the storm made landfall?
Well, Paul, I mean, it's amazing. We saw the sun come up. Few showers started to roll on in, and eventually it really went downhill from there, especially during the 3 to 4 o'clock hour. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. I'm going to show you what we did, because we couldn't broadcast live because the winds were too strong to get a satellite signal up. But I did do a little chronology for you, and I'll show you that in just a second. But again, what you're going to see and what we found across Fort Myers, this is just in the down and in and around the downtown area, is what I would call Category 1 damage. Roof damage, trees down, power outages, power lines down. But again, 10, 15 miles to my north, it is a whole different story, especially up there towards Punta Gorda. So some problems up there. Hey, I want to take you back 3 to 4 o'clock this afternoon. This is what we saw here in the downtown area. Conditions continue to deteriorate rapidly here in Fort Myers as Charlie continues to approach this area as a Category 4 hurricane. What we are going to see, tree damage, power outages, damage to homes, and surge. Instead of earlier 8 feet of surge, potentially now we could deal with 18 feet. And that is a huge issue in this area, which is very, very low. Donna was the last one in 1960. 98% of the people have never experienced a hurricane like this one. And you know what? This is going to be the worst damage in Florida since Hurricane Andrew. It's not just a Fort Myers hurricane. It's going to go up through Orlando and head up toward Jacksonville as well. We need to keep an eye on it because it's going to take a real whack across Florida. I'll keep you posted here from Fort Myers. We're going to go inside, get out of harm's way, and we'll come back and let you know how this area fared. And that's exactly what we did, and certainly came back out, and we did see, like I mentioned here in the downtown area, some Category 1 damage. A little silver lining tonight, guys. Looking across from me, another resort area, another hotel, if you will, and it looks like some of that power is starting to come back on. Traffic's starting to move along behind me as well, so slowly but surely, at least here in Fort Myers, that's not the situation on the coastline, things are starting to get back to normal. So we'll, obviously, as information filters in, which it will slowly, we'll let you know what we find out. Paul and Jennifer, back to you.
Great, thanks, Jim. Good to see you made it through yet another storm.
Well, now let's go over to the east coast of Florida and let's check in with meteorologist Stephanie Abrams. She is live in Daytona Beach. Stephanie, the center of circulation not too far from you. So what are you seeing here at the beach tonight?
Well, you know, Jennifer and Paul, we did see a very nasty squall line roll through around 8 o'clock, and we'll show you some video from that coming up in just a moment. Right now, the winds are starting to pick up. Fortunately, the storm system, obviously, as it interacts with land, it's going to slow down, but it's still a very nasty system. We are anticipating heavy rains to move onto our area shortly. As we show you that radar, you can see, yeah, the darker shades of green will be moving into Daytona Beach shortly, and they will be lasting as we head on into the evening hours. And boy, we don't need any more rain in this area. We are well above average for this time of year. So now we want to show you some pictures from a little bit earlier because the lightning was quite spectacular and that rain was really coming down. Well, conditions have quickly gone downhill here in Daytona Beach, Florida, as a squall line from Charlie is pushing through the area. We're seeing a lot of lightning, some gustier winds, very heavy rainfall. This same squall line produced tornadoes in Osceola County, and you know what we're expecting? The same here. We're under a tornado watch, and of course this is not going to let up as we head into the evening hours. We anticipate more heavy rain, more gusty winds, and that threat for tornadoes. And speaking of that threat for tornadoes, we actually already have reports. These are reports of 2 tornadoes down in South Daytona that have reportedly damaged roofs. And also, unfortunately, we do have reports of 1 person that is injured. And as you saw on that radar, we anticipate some very steady and very heavy rain to be moving into our area. I spoke to the EOC earlier today. They had mandatory evacuations for those in mobile homes and also manufactured homes. And also they have 26 shelters open in this area. But if you are at home right now, I do suggest that you stay put as Charlie continues to head in our direction. And Paul and Jennifer, I'll be here all night long telling you guys what's going on.
All right, some good advice. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
Well, again, we still have Hurricane Charlie to deal with. Let's bring in our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons. And Dr. Lyons, looks like Charlie has also weakened a little bit in terms of sustained winds. What about the east coast of Florida?
Well, that's right, Paul, down to 90 miles per hour, but it's still packing a punch in the Orlando area. On the east coast of Florida, it's good news because the strong winds will be pushing offshore instead of onshore, so there's not going to be a surge. And the winds pointing toward the coast on the north side, which is blowing from the east, are going to be there only for a short time. So the wave action on the coast is not going to be that great, except up in northern South Carolina and North Carolina. That's where the impact on the coast will be, where those winds are coming onshore. That's where we can get the surge and the wave action. Georgia, we're going to be in pretty good shape other than some rain and blustery weather. You can see some very heavy rain there moving just past St. Augustine. Dr. Forbes has been monitoring the tornado activity associated with this stuff. Now, we've been telling you about the impact across the Florida Peninsula. It's primarily power outages and wind damage associated with the trees. Now, there have been some damage to structures as well, but right now we expect this to possibly move all the way to the coast, up toward Daytona Beach or just to the north of Daytona Beach over the next few hours and then push offshore. Now, where's the circulation going after that? Well, it's going to go offshore very early Saturday morning, Saturday a.m. By the time you get up, it'll be offshore, and then coming up toward the Carolinas. The right side of the circulation will be worse. We think we're going to have a much weaker circulation than we had on the west coast of Florida, where, by the way, all the hurricane warnings and watches have been dropped, which is good news. But they haven't been dropped on the Atlantic side. We do have hurricane warnings up along the coast, basically from Cape Lookout all the way down to Cocoa Beach as the system comes up toward the Carolinas. We don't expect tremendous damage, but we'll let you know tomorrow morning exactly what's going on. Paul, Jennifer.
Well, stay with us. We have continuing coverage of Hurricane Charlie.
That's right. Folks in Fort Myers had to hold on to each other to brave the winds from Hurricane Charlie. Wind speeds were report right now of estimated up to 127 miles an hour.
Again, here's the latest conditions on Hurricane Charlie. Sustained winds now at 90 miles per hour. We'll have more with our severe weather expert coming up right after your local on the 8s. And here's a look at what used to be part of a roof in Fort Myers, but it just turned into flying debris. Parts of the fury of wind and rain that tore through Florida's west coast.
And again, the storm is crossing over the Florida Peninsula right now. Let's find out the impacts from this storm as it moves closer to Orlando with our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes. And Dr. Forbes, what can we expect for this evening?
Damaging winds and still the possibility of tornadoes. It's really clobbered the Orlando area everywhere in there. 71, 87 mile per hour wind gusts. Let's take a look. It's in this leading edge, the rain band here, the leading eye wall of Charlie is moving off toward the northeast, and that is going to affect with that damaging wind tornado threat everywhere right along and about 25 miles east of I-4 as it heads up toward Daytona Beach. That includes Winter Springs, Sanford, Deltona, and the Daytona Beach area. We also have this rain band. That gave some tornadoes, took their roof off of Sunshine Mall in South Daytona. That's heading for the beach areas just to the south and east of Jacksonville. Be on the lookout there for damaging winds and a possible tornado as well. We'll switch sources here. We'll see that the threat is going to be off ahead and just to the right of the center of Charlie as it moves off to the northeast. Locally, right in the core there, we could get some 6-inch type rainfalls accumulating, some flooding. We have reports now of 105-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Orlando International Airport. That rain will continue to spread tomorrow off toward the northeast along the coastal Carolinas up into Philadelphia and New York City over the next several days. 6 inches and flooding a likelihood.
All right, thanks so much, Dr. Greg Forbes.
And again, as this hurricane continues to move, it could possibly threaten the Carolinas. Let's go live to meteorologist Mike Seidel, who is in Folly Beach around the Charleston, South Carolina area tonight. And Mike, are people there taking the risk and perhaps the threat and danger of Hurricane Charlie?
Well, we think that Charlie will not directly impact here in Charleston and the areas here in the Low Country, but we will see problems in the Grand Strand area. We're talking about mandatory evacuations in Horry and Georgetown counties, including Myrtle Beach. Now, the mandatory evacuation, which kicked in earlier this evening, is for areas east of Highway 17. We'll have more from here coming up. Stay tuned next, though, for Local on the 8s, and then we'll have continuing coverage on Hurricane Charlie.